And this is David's rally, and it's one I spotted and couldn't justify myself buying, so I put a note out on Real Love Guitars, and David saw it and snapped it up. So yeah, there's some damage here. Somebody's hello, come in, focus, doink. Oh wow, yeah, somebody's screwed something in here and absolutely cracked the hell out of what you can see here is an immensely thick finish. I mean, that's incredible. You can zoom in. Look at that for finish. That is about 1.5 millimeters thick, and so an inappropriately applied screw. What they've tried to do is extend the size of the truss rod cover, and in doing so they've put a massive screw in here, and it has completely knackered the finish once and for all. And so fortunately that's just there to be filled up, possibly if we can, with some black stuff, but it is never going to look fantastic. But you know what, it doesn't really matter, because this guitar already, get in focus would you, this guitar already plays and feels great, and it feels just like the rallies I've had before. And the other thing, of course, is it sounds stupendous. The rallies, in my experience, come with brilliant pickups, standard equipment. These things, they are very distinctly different from each other. Okay, there's a little ding there, you know, not a big deal, eh? But yeah, the rally pickups are by default very different from each other, and so that they together they make three very usable tones, which I really think makes sense when you've got two pickups. Why not make them sound different, and why not make them add up to three different things? Now this is already pretty low in terms of action, and it played wonderfully. It's got some sharp frets on the edges here which I'd need to take care of, but it's a beautiful thing. And when I first met rallies, I just thought these things are without a doubt a cut above the rest. Now this thing comes with, by default, with a plastic nut as default, and I'm going to remove that and put an adjustable one in. And what we'll do is we'll just do a few little tweaks, like get this toggle pointing in the right direction. It's a bit skew-if. We'll do a very light level. We'll definitely unsharpen the corners of these frets because they're too sharp. We can see what we can do with this. It's not even that important. We might even find a cover, not one that will probably cover it, but we'll find something. I think what probably somebody might have done is put a Gibson style bell cover on there, and they've put their own, drilled a hole, a very small hole, and then just screwed in, and the whole thing's gone crack. But I would happily have this and play this without any concerns. It came from Rich Tone Music, who I've bought from before, and they're a very good seller. It has a slight problem that a lot of these guitars have, and that is that the G string on the saddles is always the highest one of all of them, which seems a little bit odd. I'm not quite sure why the factory where they make these things, maybe I'm just seeing it wrong, but it just feels to be a little bit high on the G, above and beyond everything else. But what I'll do is, I think I will go down this end first. Well, let me think, what will I do first? Looks over here. Sorry about the view, not brilliant. I think what I'll do is let's have a quick tweak of the selector button. Let's get that pointing in the right direction first of all, and then we can go on to the nut and then move on from there. Okay, that's spinning, going nowhere. That's coming out. Yeah, so when I first encountered these rallies, I was really surprised because, in part because the pickup sounded so good, but they feel marvelous. They really do. You can see there that the holes don't really bite into much, and they sort of tilt inwards, so there's not really a lot for them to grab onto. But it's not the end of the world. Let's put you back there. What I'm going to do is, probably can't see very well, I'm going to get my tightener-y thing, and I'm going to just slack it off enough to move it into position like so, and then I can see it. I can see when it's in position. It looks all right, and then it can be useful. I don't know if I've got one here, but maybe a block of something. I used to have some bits of wood, but a block like this will help me to prevent it from turning as I tighten it back up. That's it. So I can actually, I don't have to try and hold the thing with my hand. Okay, that'll do. So that's that little bit taken care of. We'll put these back in. Again, they're not going to bite very strongly, but I've got slightly longer ones, but I'm not even sure that will make much difference, to be honest. This one here is going to do the holding, really. So that out of the way, this out of the way. Okay, so next stop is we move on to the, if I'm doing this in a sort of quite a whizzy through manner, it's Sunday evening, and I'm just being kind of business-like, shall we say. Okay, so here we have plastic nut ready to come off. Now the thing about these is I'm going to give this a little tap because it looks like it's not done in the vintage stroke Harley Benton way. It looks like a tap. This should move. Now if it doesn't move with the tap, then I will stop and I'll cut it out, because what I don't want is the headstock to kind of split off all over the place. There you go. The tap is a good one on here. So this should move. Very good, thank you. Plastic out. And then what I'll get is, I'll get me a one of those things, adjustable Tusq nut. I'll try and open this and get a couple of these. Now what I don't know, by the way, is I don't know whether this needs a tall one, a la Epiphone, or whether it needs a short one. So I'm going to try and see if we've got any shorties. Well, not in there, but I expect we have somewhere, wherever I put them, and this is where I get lost. So somewhere in here are all the, they're not even named, are they? What am I looking for? I'm looking for adjustable nut bases. I think shoving them in there is probably not the best idea. There we have them. So I've got a variety of different depths here. So look at the overall height of this nut, that sort of thing. Actually, it does look like it will probably go the full height. It's a bit more like an Epiphone, so that's okay. Didn't need to get the other bits. So if I get my Tusq adjustable jobby out, what I have to do now is to tailor this to exactly fit onto the shelf of this rally, and these adjustable nuts really do make a massive difference. So let me just move that out of the way. So here we are, first of all, with the tall base and the adjustable nut. Now the first thing I'm going to want to do is to just wind back the feet of the grub screws in the adjustable nut to a point where they're almost hidden away, and I'm going to want to just flatten them out a little bit. Now these little small bits of sandpaper move, so it's not as easy to use, but I don't want to bring the whole big sanding thing up here. So I'm just aiming to flatten off the grub screws so that we're left with a flat foot, so it can spread as much as possible the load of the strings pushing down across a wider area rather than onto the edges of the grub screw cup shape that it has to begin with, until I sand it back like this. So once it's moving, that's nice and flat. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fit it in its little housing. That becomes that. And then I'm going to do a little quick check, and that's very nearly a drop-in fit. So what I'll do is I'm just going to, first of all, I want to sand away the front edge until it's flush. So I'm using quite a rough paper to begin with, and I'm taking away a mixture of the base and the nut until I get it completely smooth, and then I can also check to see if it fits. So a little bit off both sides really. And then have a look how things look. So it's nice and smooth either side, and it's very nearly ready to drop in. What I will do, for the sake of this, I will bring up the board. It's got nice fresh stuff to sand on. So I don't know if you can see that. And I've got the guitar just off to the side, so I'm just checking the fit. I mean, that's almost precisely fitting. So I'm going to do it down here, and I'm going to push a little bit to balance up the way it's sanding. Very nice. So this brings the whole of the nut down to the thickness I want for the slot, and it also tidies up the front of it, and it's totally flush there, which is what we really want. A little bit more on the other side, the back side. Followed by cleaning up on the fresh stuff here, which leaves a clean finish. So the nut is still untouched, or the slots, fret slots are still untouched, and that's absolutely beautiful fit. Yum. So I'll just bring it back into view. Da, 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 da. And there we have it. Da, da, da. Just dropped into place beautifully. So now, before I put those back on, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just mark the frets. Ooh, there's a little bit of wear on some of these, but we'll take care of that in the leveling process. So I'm just going to quickly do the marker pen along the top of the frets, and I think we'll need very little in the way of leveling, but it's going to be cool because there's plenty of fret life here anyway. These things don't get played to death. It's really strange. Because they're a fairly unknown brand, they're not really, I don't know, they're not sought after, and you can find them second hand. When you find them, they usually can be had quite cheaply, inexpensively, relatively inexpensively, which I think is great. I mean, it's one of the things that appealed to me from the beginning. Okay, so I'm starting out with my strings on the first fret, which is where I want them to begin with, but I'm going to lift them up now using the little feet so that we have a little action, a certain amount of action above the fret. And now I'm going to tune this A again. The tuners work great on these. Okay, that's the nut changed. Fantastic that it was so easy. I'm just going to zoom out a minute while I check the last fret action, which I think is quite low to begin with. Actually a little higher than I would go, so let's dial that in a little bit. This is where we would notice any fret problems. So I'm going to go 1.5 on that side, and that's nice at 1.2 on that side. Obviously the tuning will now change because it's lowered. Now I'm just going to look at the neck relief a tiny bit. We'll go with that for now, because the thing about these rallies is they play with a really nice flat neck. Little bit of ziz there. These are great necks. I'll tell you what, that is very, very good. That's as good as any of the new fantastic new Epiphones that I've been talking about. However, the slight difference is this isn't new, and I can't rule out that it's been leveled before. Who knows, it might even have passed through my wretched hands, because I have had one of these through before in the past, which I didn't keep as well. Well, it wasn't mine, that one, it was a customer's. But no, wait a minute, I bought it for a customer. And I think I bought it from Rich Tone Music as well. So that is a place I have seen these before and keep my eyes out for them. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to very lightly level. And what the leveling is going to show me is anything that's up with the neck. It's going to clear up that little bit of fret wear. It's going to reduce any fret slap on the lower strings. But I predict out of this, knowing rallies as I do, I predict a riot. I predict very, very low, fast action on this here guitar. And it's one of those things that if David doesn't get on with it over time, I'll just sort of let him know that I'm in the background going, well, if I had to have one of these in my collection, I wouldn't put up too big a fight. Or too big of a fight, which is not a way I like to say things, but okay, so I'm going to just do a little bit of leveling first, and this is always a great way for me to see what this neck is doing by default. So I can tell you straight away, good, so cut, there's a chip on the fret there which we'll hopefully take away. Low, lowish, low, a little bit high on the end, high, okay, average, low at the end. So we've got a couple of ups and downs, up, down, up, a little bit down here. So it's as many necks, it's got undulations. So we'll just try and gently ease those out. And of course at the same time what I want to do is see if I can just rub out this little chip that's in the fret. I think we've managed to do it. Hurrah! For not too much fret metal. There are a couple of individual low frets right at the top here, but they didn't seem to be causing any trouble when I just played through a minute ago. So let's try one by one. There's a low one. So that funny little squelch up there is because the finger, if you like, the fretting finger fell into a low dip where that fret is. So I'm just going to add a little bit of extra welly on this end to see if I can slightly bottom out that low fret and reduce the amount of ziz it creates. And I think I'll probably have done it there. Don't forget, once I've done the leveling, I'm also going to need to go and do the rounding off the edges. That's good, I can live with that. Move straight on to the B channel. I predicted that David would like this rally over the brand new Epiphone SG Muse, and it'll be interesting to see. I think it will be a fairly close run thing if the Muse plays, if he can play it okay with that adjustable nut on with its 35mm spacing. If we have to go back to the narrow gauge, I think it would be such a strange feeling to go from this wide space back to the narrow of the Muse. So I'm kind of slightly concerned that will be that might be an issue. Can't really, there isn't a lot of in between that we can do. It's either go backwards to that the original nut and its 34mm spacing, E to E spacing, which is quite narrow, or we stay where it is, which then keeps it the same as this, which should make it familiar at least. I mean, it's a little closer to the edge than this one, but it should make the experience of playing it fairly familiar. Otherwise, I kind of wouldn't be surprised if this one becomes a go-to favourite because of the extra width and the fact it's a fab guitar anyway. Amazing, amazing, all good. Right, so I've got the bends, they're all good. I've got the wear out of the fret, which is all good. Now really we're on the sort of home run now to the lower strings, and a little bit of fret slap on there, which we can hopefully clear up. But apart from that, it's all looking good. I think the thing about the rallies when I first came across them is that I think the company that makes them is a Korean company, which, as far as I could see, gets their guitars made in China. So I guess just like people who have an idea in the UK to get partner with a Chinese manufacturing company and make cheap guitars for the European or North American market. It's interesting to see that the Koreans, maybe, I'm just guessing this because I don't know the economics behind it, but maybe the Koreans have a high wage economy, relatively high wage economy, and maybe they're doing exactly what a lot of European people do, Americans, and that is go and partner with Chinese companies for the cheap labour and get their stuff mass produced in China. But if that's the case, or even if despite that being the case, it seems that the Korean company behind Rally has certainly made sure that the quality is good, and that's what's really impressed me from the start. That I've got the first one, and it was definitely a second-hand guitar, and I remember playing it, and it was almost perfect. Just picking up Play It went out of the packaging when it arrived. A tiny bit more on that. Yeah, and it was, it was so low and fast. Not that I can play fast, but it felt low and fast, and it was just gorgeous from the outset. And I remember letting my friend Malcolm have a go, and then he was hooked like me, and then after that we were singing their praises everywhere we could and looking out for rallies. Now Rally has in its time apparently made every kind of shape there is to make, and we've occasionally found the odd catalogue and seen this huge range of different styles, but I have to say I've seen a few different styles of rallies. For example, Explorers. There is a semi-acoustic which I haven't had my hands on yet, but it's supposed to be quite good. but some of the some of them don't, that I've seen, don't look as lush as this, but certainly every single one of their Les Paul styles, this is listed as the GL450, but I think it's the GL300. I think the person's got the name wrong, but anyway, you know, they're two main Les Paul models, the GL300 and the GL450. The familiar Les Paul looking things in the sunbursts and so on are just fantastic guitars. They really are. And I think the thing was really, the deal for me was sealed by the fact that the pickups were so good. Blimey. Well, that's obviously out, but yeah. Awesome, absolutely bloody awesome. I am so bloody annoyed that I just didn't chuck 99 quid at it. Obviously it's more expensive with my setup added to it, but purchase price of 99 quid. I should have had it. I was sitting there going, no, I don't need another guitar. No, I've got more than enough of my own guitars. That's been all so sensible. Anyway, sensible. I commend myself for being so grown up and sensible, eh? And so David got it. I was annoyed because if I just hadn't bought it and it had gone away and that was it, I wouldn't have thought about it. But it had to be bought by somebody who was then going to bring it to me. That seems unfair. It's adding insult to salty wounds or something. Anyway. Right, so I'm looking at this great chunk of missing stuff and I'm thinking there's nothing that critically needs doing with it. It is what it is. It's not, nothing's going to snap, nothing's going to break any further. There's no load on it. It's just some pressure has broken the brittle material, which is a shame that somebody clumsy got stuck into it. So no big deal. I might have a look and see if we can get any material, what's that stuff called? It's called Fill and Finish by GluBoost. I got some of that. We'll put some of that in and see if we can build up a glassy, clear sort of repair there. But I'll do that off camera in a minute. Meanwhile, what I want to do is just get the, look at that, it just sits there. It's like it just belongs there. I think what I'll have to do in order to do any work on it is to remove the tuners. So let's do that. So what I'll do with this, so I can get some bit of off the camera time in a minute, I will recrown these now. You can see me doing that bit. Then I will go off camera and polish out the frets off camera and do some work on the headstock here. See what the easiest way of just covering that up and making it look better. It's not the end of the world, but so we're not going to spend any chargeable time on it. That's a way of putting it, isn't it? So it's kind of a freebie touch-up if possible. We're not going for a refinish or anything like that. Although it's entirely possible to do that if we wanted to. Taking the tuners off is something it's not a massive pain in the backside. These are made by Jin Ho, which is These tuners are made by Jinho, which flip it over and that goes with that, right? Which are equivalent, or they're a copy of Grover's, and they work perfectly well. I've absolutely never had any problems with them on my rallies. Now there's a number of people I still know, a number of customers I still know who've got rallies as a result of our big rally kind of the first blush of discovery, and Malcolm's one of them, and I know there are a few other people who've got them, which is great. All except me. I'm not trying to make you feel sorry for me or anything. Okay, so we've got rid of the chip in that fret down there, which is good, and now I'm just going to cover these over as we crown them. And when I've crowned them, I'll also just quickly go down and round off the sharp points. The thing about the frets is when you have them beveled nicely at the ends, that's done with a block, and the block is nice and flat, and as a result, as it goes down there, it cuts the frets flush with the board, with the edge of the fingerboard, and the result of it is that you get a little sharp bit in either corner of the fret, and you can't really use that method without getting that sharp bit as an end result. So if you've got nicely thingied frets, you'll get those little sharp bits. So we need to smooth them off, otherwise they do stick in the fingers. But again, there's sort of no win really, because if you I've already spiked myself for something. I am now bleeding. If we round them off, we lose that beautiful fret end shape that looks so nice, kind of precise and machine-like. But with that comes the unnecessary sharpness. So I'm going to go for slightly rounding it off, because we're after smoothness, not machine precision. So you can see from the amount that I'm crowning, there's not a lot of metal taken off most of these frets. One or two a little bit longer effort required on them, but overall they're kind of crowning up very nicely. This will be a blinder of a low playing Les Paul. And it's great for me because it's reconfirmed what I knew anyway, but sometimes you forget and you think, oh, maybe I had a rose tinted view of these things, maybe it was a certain time in history, and every one I touched I just thought, oh, I love this guitar. And then you see one a few years later and you pick it up and you go, God, that feels a class apart from any of the copies in its class, if you get what I mean. There's not a vintage on the market that feels like this. No V100 feels quite the way this does, or sounds as good with its pickups. And for some reason, the vintage V100 neck doesn't seem to go as flat and low as this one does, and produce such a easy to play action. So I'm very happy with these guitars, and I can't quite exactly tell you what it is that they got right, but I guess the Korean company behind it had some sort of power in its in the way it sort of imposed their quality control on the whole thing, which is fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to get a bit of stuff, namely naphtha. I'm just going to take off a fair bit of the grime off here before we do any masking off. So this just helps me to clear up the fret dust, but also clear up the marker pen, which is going to be left behind on the bottom parts of the frets, and it's just nicer to start without that on there. So the precision leveling part is done, the precision nut making part is done, so really the rest is now polishing out, smoothing the frets, turning the rough fret surfaces where they've been filed into smooth and shiny frets again. So it's tidying up now in a way from here on inwards. We only have to gently glue down the nut, just lightly glue it down in place, and we can adjust it up and down to our heart's content. Fab. Okay. Boink. Lovely. So I'll just show you the filing part. So I'm going to use a little tiny file here, and I'm going to go to each of these little corners, and I'm just going to run that file down into that corner, and it just rounds off the sharp bit that's trying to stick in my fingers. Like I say though, it also rounds off what would otherwise be a very sharp looking end of the fret, but I'd rather it didn't have the little spikes. And because you've got one plane, the fret going that way meeting a sliced plane across section of it, obviously it gives it these sharp corners which need controlling, or else you will get caught out by them. You know, I've not really found a better way of doing this. I prefer not to be scraping with a file. I wish there was another way of this being slightly rounded, but I don't think there is. I think you have to go in and manually do it. It might be, different file might be appropriate, like maybe some sort of sandpapery thing. Although once I've done this little bit of filing, I do try to file these or smooth these points down even further when we're doing the polishing out part in a minute with the fretboard all masked off. But to begin with, I'll just get all these sharp spikes nicked off. And turn it round. Oh, it's a lovely guitar. Oh, I'm so jealous. Did I tell you, David, that I'm envious and jealous and resentful? It served me right for trying to be so virtuous, eh? That's my fault. When you really are, what's the word? I'm coveting this guitar, and I pretend to myself that I'm not, because my pride wants me to be seen as a virtuous individual. So I go, no, I'm not going to buy this. And then I find myself wishing I had anyway, for £99. Actually, you know, one of the things that sort of stopped me is that had I not had a double humbucker guitar that I really liked playing, I would have definitely bought this. And the reason why is because it wouldn't be for resale. And the reason I could resell it and do it up and resell it, but the reason it's more of a problem is because of the headstock thing. So that obviously lowers the value to someone buying it, and it wouldn't be economical really to try and fix that. So I guess what I'm saying is it wouldn't be a buyer to sell on, so it would only really be good for me to buy it if I was keeping it, and don't really have just justification for keeping it. Now this is a little bit of sandpaper covered stuff. I'm wondering if that's really going to make much difference. I'm trying to just round off this cut edges. Fortunately, it's difficult to get right in there because it's right in the corner. But yeah, so it's not worth it as a buying proposition to, for 99 quid I could comfortably have set this up, and with my sort of, everybody knows how much I value or rate these, not value them, how much I rate these. that would have probably ensured an easy sale through Relove Guitars. But you know, with the headstock imperfection, that would have meant, you know, I'd have to have kept the price, you know, lowish, because, you know, it's an imperfect condition, and I probably would have only broken even, as in got my money back for the guitar and got paid for the setup time. So I guess it's better that I'm getting paid for the setup time now and not having put out any outlay on the guitar. But I don't see David parting with this anyway. No reason I could see why he would. That's better already. So now, when I polish everything out, I'll include these bits in there, include the ends in the polishing regime, and see what I can do. There's no way of getting this flattened out any more than it is. So the best bet really is to try and just fill this and see if I can find a plastic cover that's the right size to go in there. Alright, I'm going to call it quits for today. I'll probably get on and do a lot of this, do the polish out here off camera, and I'll come back when I've done everything except restring, which might be tomorrow, depending on how late it gets and how I feel. But everything else here is looking good. In fact, I could take all these bits off and give everything a clean, because it's such a nice guitar. These stop bars are quite tightly screwed down, but no big deal. We could take these off, but we don't need to. It's pretty good condition. Just get in and out of here, that's the main thing. Right, see you in a bit. Okay, running up to the end game here. I have done the polishing out, I've put everything together, tuner's back on. You can see my repair with what's it called? GluBoost Fill and Finish. And it's not the world's most greatest repair, but it's a quick repair, and it's filled the hole, and it's mostly set, but I think it will continue setting over time. So at the moment I'm just going to start by putting on the strings. We'll do some string stretching, and then we'll be pretty much done. At some point I might find a cover to go on there, a distracting cover somewhere in my plastics. I've probably got one. In the meantime, I've also tightened up the jack socket, which was loose. So pull all the way straight out, pull back 1 fret's worth, and then start winding it on. Keep the held wire taut, and as it comes round, push it under the loose wire, and then you've got a sort of locking loop like that. Make sure it's on the saddle adequately. I've only got one camera running at the moment because I didn't think I was going to finish this tonight, but I did. So I kind of put the other camera away anyway. So I thought we'll get it done and we can get these two home, and then all that we've got left to do is an acoustic, yes, two things, an acoustic guitar and a quick check up and light setup on a brand new bass, Harley Benton bass guitar. And I say light setup because, come on, over the top of this, please. Thank you. I say light setup because a brand new Harley Benton bass should be safely in the realms of, you know, being able to set a good low action. Why is this caught up? Anyway. So we should be able to get a very good playing action out of it without any major upgrades. But we shall see when the time comes. I mean, the reason I am fairly confident about that is that bass guitars can almost always be set to a low action without needing to fret level. Well, that, depending on the preference of the customer, if they want it really, really low, then it is usually some leveling gets brought into it. But we shall see. Right, at the moment I've got the action right down low at the other end, so I'm just going to just put the strings on and get them under tension a little bit, and then I'll raise the action to our target. So here we go, string on, pulled all the way through, pulled back 1 fret's worth, wind it on, allow the loose string to go under the held string. As it comes round, yank up the loose string, direct the held string under it, and that's done. Get it on the saddle before you put any tightening on it. Often when you do this, it will go down between the saddle, between saddles. And if you tighten it too much, you might get a crimp on it, so check before you put too much pressure on it. Round it comes, change hands, or change fingers. Get it on the saddle, good. Round, round. I think the first fret action should be good, which should have remained where it was, but again, it's no big deal because we can always alter it. These are hybrid 9s, so 9s at the top and a little heavier at the bottom. Okay. Tight through, back 1 fret, wind on. Cut it back. So this stretching out business, as I showed on the SG a little while before, is really critical to getting tuning stability. 50% comes from the quality nut that we fitted, which is Tusq, so it's pre-lubricated. The slots are untouched by any files because we're using an adjustable action to raise them to the correct first fret height. So we've got the best non-friction nut we could possibly have. There's no better, and that should give us the best hope of keeping this tuning stable, in conjunction with the next bit, which is the importance of stretching out the strings that you've just put on your guitar. So a lot of people underestimate how important this next bit is. You've got to, first of all, I'm just going to pull these strings to kind of bed them on, just to make sure they're sitting where they need to be and nothing's got caught anywhere. Then what I'll do is I'll raise up the action, and I will get my measuring thing, won't I? I'll just put these under a little bit of tension because I just want to use that to gauge the action. So that's a little bit low, that's 1 millimeter, so we want about just under 1.5. That's pretty good. And then on this side we want about 1.2, and that's about 1.5 at the moment, so we can take that in a little bit. That's 1.2. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is get it to tune with my tuning fork. So that's tuned up to pitch, roughly. It doesn't have to be exact because we're really more concerned about getting the tension right. And now I'm going to go along here with thumb and forefinger, going to press and stretch each string as much as I can, and go back along each string. Obviously Be careful when you get up to your E strings because you can break them. Just going to turn the heater off now. What have we got? 55 and 17. So that's not bad in this weather. It's telling us we could spray in this space if we had to, which I might need to do soon. We can do spraying, and it's 17 and 55, so that's actually a pretty good combination of readings. Not ideal from the point of view of the vapors getting around the place, but for a couple of jobs coming up in this winter period, it might be worth doing. So all of that tuning up was all slack that would come out when you were playing. More in the bass string. Thing is, with as far as the slack goes, even if you stretched out all your slack the way we're doing now, but your nut was plastic, and like many nuts, it was actually gripping the strings. The strings were kind of wedged in the bottom of the slots or something, and it was gripping them. It wouldn't matter if you'd stretched out all your slack, because what would be going out of tune, or what would be causing it then to go out of tune, would be almost single-handedly down to the slots. And what happens is that when you tune, it pulls the string through, but it doesn't equalize. The string gets caught, wedged in the slot, or caught by the friction, and as a result it won't, there'll be a little more tension on this side than there until you bend it, and that will pull it through, overcome the resistance, and then more slack will be on this side, in which case this side will get out of tune, and it will keep on doing that no matter how long you play, because the friction in the nut will keep doing it. So if you get both of these things right, it's the only way to get solid tuning. Brilliant. I love this guitar. Did I tell you that? Right, it's going in its bag. I'm done. Thank you very much for watching. I'll find a cover if I have one somewhere for this. Otherwise, it still looks a damn good guitar. And if you don't want it, David, I'll buy it back off you. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye.